In this video we analyze a brilliant chess game move by move. Watch closely. One small mistake can decide everything. Let's begin. Wesley advances the d-pawn, claiming central space immediately and signaling that Anand will face an ambitious positional battle. P. Anand develops the knight to f6, challenging the center while preparing flexible counterplay against Wesley's setup. Wesley develops the knight to c3, reinforcing central control and preparing to support his developing pieces naturally. Anand strikes the center with the d-pawn, establishing a solid foothold and contesting Wesley's territorial ambitions. Wesley develops the bishop to f4, aiming actively along the diagonal and increasing pressure on Anand's central position. Anand pushes the c-pawn, attacking the center immediately and forcing Wesley to decide how to maintain his structure. Wesley advances the e-pawn, building a strong central formation and opening lines for his kingside bishop. Anand captures on d4 with the c-pawn, eliminating Wesley's central pawn and forcing the structure to transform. Wesley recaptures with the e-pawn, restoring material balance while establishing a more dynamic central pawn structure. Anand plays a6, questioning future bishop activity and preparing to gain useful space on the queenside. Wesley develops the knight to f3, reinforcing the center and bringing another piece into the growing battle. Anand develops the knight to chix, increasing central pressure and connecting his pieces toward active squares. Wesley jumps the knight to a5, occupying an advanced outpost and immediately asking Anand uncomfortable tactical questions. Anand develops the bishop to d7, calmly defending key territory and preparing to challenge Wesley's advanced knight. Wesley places the bishop on e3, consolidating his position while keeping useful pressure across the central board. Anand advances the e-pawn, supporting his center and preparing a sturdy defensive network around his king. Wesley develops the bishop to d3, pointing toward the kingside and increasing pressure on Anand's defensive setup. Anand develops the bishop to d6, directly contesting Wesley's active bishop and preparing exchanges if necessary. Wesley captures the knight on c6, removing an important defender and creating a sharper imbalance in the position. Anand recaptures with the bishop, restoring material balance while keeping his bishop actively posted on c&c. Wesley castles kingside, securing his king, connecting the rook, and bringing his forces into the developing central battle. Anand castles kingside, bringing his king to safety and completing a crucial stage of development before the middlegame struggle. Wesley moves the rook to a on a, placing heavy pressure along the e-file and preparing central operations. Anand answers with the rook on c8, occupying the open file and contesting Wesley's queenside ambitions. Wesley places the bishop on g5, pinning ideas around the knight and increasing the pressure against Anand's kingside. Anand plays h6, immediately questioning the bishop and forcing Wesley to decide whether tension should remain. Wesley retreats the bishop to h4, preserving the active piece while maintaining pressure and avoiding a needless exchange. Anand develops the bishop to a7, calmly breaking the pressure and strengthening his king's defensive shelter. Wesley moves the queen to d2, connecting his pieces and preparing to coordinate pressure through the center. Anand moves the queen to b6, activating it aggressively and increasing pressure toward Wesley's queenside structure. Wesley moves the a-rook to bone, supporting the b-file and preparing to challenge Anand's expanding queenside forces. Anand jumps the knight to e4, centralizing boldly and creating immediate tactical tension against Wesley's position. Wesley captures that knight on e4, eliminating the advanced intruder before Anand can exploit its aggressive placement. Anand's bishop captures on h4, removing Wesley's active bishop and producing a sudden tactical exchange that changes the piece balance. Wesley develops the knight to g3, restoring coordination and preparing to challenge Anand's bishop and kingside control. Anand retreats the bishop to g5, preserving the piece while maintaining influence over important central and kingside squares. Wesley returns the queen to dun, tightening coordination and preparing another wave of positional pressure against Anand's setup. Anand places the bishop on a4, penetrating deeply and creating an awkward nuisance on Wesley's queenside. Wesley moves the knight to e2, reorganizing his pieces and preparing a safer route towards stronger central squares. Anand moves the rook to 7, doubling down on queenside activity and keeping pressure against Wesley's position. Wesley jumps the knight to c3, centralizing again and preparing to challenge Anand's active bishop and queenside pieces. Anand retreats the bishop to d7, stepping back while preserving the bishop and maintaining defensive flexibility. Wesley returns the knight to e2, continuing his maneuvering game as both sides probe for weaknesses. Anand shifts the queen to d6, centralizing it and keeping an eye on important tactical possibilities across the board. Wesley advances the c-pawn, strengthening his center and preparing to meet Anand's expanding queenside operation with greater stability. Anand pushes the b-pawn, gaining space and launching a direct queenside expansion against Wesley's pawn structure. Wesley advances the g-pawn, creating useful luft while preparing to stabilize his kingside against future pressure. Anand pushes the b-pawn again, charging forward and forcing Wesley to confront the growing queenside threat. Wesley advances the h-pawn, gaining space and restricting Anand's kingside options while the queenside battle intensifies. Anand retreats the bishop to f6, preserving it while maintaining control over important central and diagonal squares. Wesley returns the queen to d2, reconnecting his pieces and preparing to meet Anand's expanding pawn mass. Anand advances the a-pawn, gaining more queenside space and tightening the net around Wesley's pawn structure. Wesley brings the knight to f4, activating it towards strong central and kingside squares with tactical intentions. Anand captures on c, with the b-pawn, smashing into Wesley's structure and opening the position on the queenside. Wesley recaptures on c3 with the b-pawn, restoring material balance and leaving a new pawn structure behind. Anand moves the f-rook to c8, reinforcing the c-file and increasing pressure against Wesley's vulnerable queenside. Wesley moves the e-rook to c8, contesting the c-file directly and preparing a serious rook confrontation. Anand pushes the a-pawn to a4, gaining further space and fixing Wesley's queenside weaknesses for later attack. Wesley retreats the bishop to f1, preserving it while preparing to maneuver defensively around the changing position. Anand places the queen on a3, invading aggressively and creating immediate pressure against Wesley's exposed queenside structure. Wesley places the bishop on a6, attacking from the flank and forcing Anand's pieces to remain alert. Anand moves the rook to a8, challenging the bishop's activity and preparing to control the open a-file. Wesley retreats the bishop to f1, keeping the piece safe while continuing his patient defensive maneuvering. Anand moves the bishop to e7, reorganizing the bishop and reinforcing control over key central squares. Wesley moves the rook to c2, supporting the second rank and contesting Anand's active rook pressure. Anand moves the bishop to d6, improving its activity and maintaining pressure toward Wesley's kingside defensive setup. Wesley moves the knight to g2, regrouping patiently and preparing another route toward useful central squares. Anand moves the a-rook to c8, adding another rook to the contested file and intensifying the pressure. Wesley returns the bishop to a6, repeating the maneuver and keeping Anand's rook tied to defensive duties. Anand retreats the rook to 8, challenging the bishop while avoiding unnecessary complications on the file. Wesley returns the bishop to f1, maintaining the defensive setup and refusing to give Anand an easy target. Anand returns the a-rook to c8, once again occupying the contested file and keeping the tension alive. Wesley sends the bishop back to a6, continuing the persistent maneuver and testing Anand's patience under mounting pressure. Anand moves the rook to d8, changing files and preparing to contest Wesley's central pawn structure. Wesley moves the knight to e3, centralizing it, and preparing to support tactical operations in the heart of the board. Anand retreats the bishop to e7, maintaining a solid defensive position while watching Wesley's central coordination. Wesley moves the bishop to d3, improving its diagonal and increasing pressure toward Anand's kingside defensive formation. Anand moves the queen to d6, centralizing again and keeping several tactical resources under careful control. Wesley jumps the knight to g4, creating fresh kingside pressure and threatening to improve his attacking coordination. Anand moves the bishop to 8, retreating defensively and preparing to withstand Wesley's growing activity on the kingside. Wesley moves the knight to f5, planting it centrally and increasing the pressure on Anand's cramped position. Anand moves the c-rook to c8, reinforcing the file and preparing for the looming rook exchanges. Wesley moves the c-rook to b2, improving rook coordination and preparing to contest Anand's heavy pieces. Anand shifts the queen to f3, keeping it active and maintaining pressure against Wesley's vulnerable queenside structure. Wesley returns the rook to c2, preserving coordination and preparing for the tactical confrontation approaching on the c-file. Anand moves the rook to bait, placing it directly against Wesley's rook and inviting a decisive exchange. Wesley returns the rook to b2, aligning it with Anand's rook and escalating the tension along the b-file. Anand develops the bishop to d6, bringing it closer to the defensive action and supporting his heavy pieces. Wesley captures the rook on bait, breaking through decisively and forcing Anand to respond immediately to the material crisis. Anand recaptures on bait with the rook, restoring material balance, but leaving another rook exposed to Wesley's attack. Wesley captures that rook on bait, delivering another exchange that strips away Anand's remaining heavy piece defense. Anand's bishop captures on bait, finally removing Wesley's rook and leaving a simplified position with the heavy pieces gone. Wesley moves the knight to g4, activating it immediately and preparing to exploit Anand's exposed king. Anand moves the king to f8, stepping away from danger and seeking a safer defensive square. Wesley advances the c-pawn, opening central possibilities and preparing to activate his bishop against Anand's position. Anand captures on c4 with the d-pawn, removing the advanced pawn and simplifying the central structure. Wesley's bishop captures on c4, restoring material and placing the bishop on a powerful active diagonal. Anand retreats the bishop to a7, preserving the piece while keeping defensive control over important squares. Wesley moves the queen to f4, creating dangerous coordination and sharpening the pressure around Anand's king. Anand moves the queen to a7, defending carefully and trying to keep Wesley's attacking pieces under control. Wesley moves the knight to a5, centralizing with tempo and increasing the pressure against Anand's defensive formation. Anand moves the king to gate, seeking shelter, while Wesley's queen and knight continue circling dangerously. Wesley moves the queen to f4, intensifying the attack and lining up tactical possibilities against Anand's king. Anand retreats the queen to date, stepping back to defend critical squares and reduce Wesley's attacking options. Wesley advances the d-pawn, creating a dangerous passer and opening lines for a potentially decisive breakthrough. Anand captures that pawn with the e-pawn, eliminating the immediate threat, but allowing Wesley's bishop to recapture. Wesley's bishop captures on d5, restoring the pawn and keeping a dangerous active piece deep in Anand's territory. Anand moves the queen to d6, centralizing defensively and trying to coordinate against Wesley's advancing attack. Wesley moves the king to g2, calmly improving king safety, while maintaining complete control of the attacking initiative. Anand moves the king to f8, retreating again as Wesley's pieces continue to squeeze the defensive position. Wesley moves the bishop to check6, creating a powerful blockade and tightening the net around Anand's king. Anand moves the queen to d4, seeking counterplay while defending against Wesley's increasingly dangerous attacking threats. Wesley checks with the knight on g6, forcing Anand's king into another defensive decision under intense pressure. Anand moves the king to gate, escaping the check, but remaining trapped under Wesley's coordinated attack. Wesley captures the bishop on 8 with check, a devastating blow that tears open Anand's final defensive barrier. Anand moves the king to h7, escaping the check but finding himself with virtually no safe shelter. Wesley checks with the knight on f8, delivering the final blow as Anand resigns, ending the game immediately after this check. The video ends here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thank you again, everyone. See you in the next video.